Okay, I'm going to start this morning by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. Welcome to everyone here at the temple, and welcome to everyone online. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the words of the Buddha. This is a program that students usually will move into after they've developed a foundation in the teachings of the Buddha, because we have various programs and courses and retreats that help people to develop a foundation and even move further along in their path and their journey to enlightenment. And today what we're going to do is we're going to start with meditation, and then we'll move into studying the original words of the Buddha. If this is the first time you've ever been studying the teachings of the Buddha, just to let you know, this isn't a traditional style of learning the way that I do this particular program. It's more of a study group. I'll show you guys what it's like after we do our meditation. But if this is the first time that you have studied the teachings of the Buddha, it's okay, because plenty of people will come here on Saturdays for the first time and they'll start learning. But just know that there's other programs that are more of a traditional style of learning where I'll be teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes and then opening up to questions, and then teaching 15, 20, 30 minutes, opening up to questions. So you'll see how today's program goes, and you'll surely learn something, and you'll surely be able to find things that'll be helpful for you in your life. But just understand that there's other programs that might be more well suited for you if you are just new to the path to enlightenment and learning the teachings of the Buddha. What the Buddha taught is he taught a path to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where your mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any discontent feelings. So all the anger, the sadness, the frustration, agitation, annoyance, irritation, the guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all these discontent feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the enlightened mind. You've purified the mind. You've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing it. So the teachings of the Buddha, it's not about a bunch of beliefs. You don't believe a bunch of things and then hope something good happens when you die. You're actually learning now. You're examining his teachings. You're investigating his teachings. You're starting to reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're doing the work to integrate the teachings into your life through practicing the teachings. And this is where meditation comes in, and other things as well, where you're practicing the teachings to uproot the causes and conditions in your mind that are producing these discontent feelings. You're essentially eliminating certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered. He discovered these pollutions that are in your mind, and when you uproot them and eliminate them out of the mind, this is where the peace, the calmness, the serenity, the contentedness, and the joy comes into the mind. And you can experience this mental state permanently, where you no longer experience any discontent feelings whatsoever. And having eliminated this pollution out of the mind, you experience focus, concentration, clarity, deep memory. You'll notice your personal and professional relationships really blossom because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships anymore. Because as long as you're putting those things out, those are the things that are going to come back to you as well. So when you stop arguing with other people, slowly but surely they'll stop arguing with you because they're realizing that, hey, this person doesn't argue. But you need to be able to transform your mind to be able to train your mind to be harmless and not cause harm to others. But you wouldn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state because the mind lacks wisdom of these natural laws. Essentially what the Buddha did is he taught the natural laws of existence, helping you to understand this world around you. Because to live in a world that you don't understand, it's a real struggle. It's really difficult. So the Buddha didn't teach the way the world should be. And if you follow a bunch of rules and commandments, then the world will become a peaceful place. He didn't teach rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship and things like this. He gave you wisdom to understand what it took for him to get to that enlightened mental state. And he didn't teach the way the world should be. He taught the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, and you can independently verify it, your mind starts functioning through these natural laws more readily. You start making wiser decisions that produce wholesome results. Because when you lack wisdom of these natural laws, you're going to naturally make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. So one of the things that we do to get started in our classes is I guide you in meditation, because this is an important part of your practice, and you'll need to learn how to meditate. So what I'm going to do to guide you in meditation is I'm going to start with some chanting. These chants are done in the Pali language, which is the historical language of the teachings of the Buddha. And these chants are on a laminated sheet over there on the table. You're welcome to help yourself and get them if you like. It even has the English translations on them. You can chant along with me if you like. Chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was used in order to commit the teaching teachings to memory, there isn't any rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship with the teachings of the Buddha. So when you look at these chants and you see the English translations, I suspect the Buddha didn't actually even create these chants, because when you read the English translations, you'll see that there's a lot of admiration and a lot of respect and gratitude for the Buddha, right? If you learned from a teacher who helped you go from anger, sadness, and frustration to this peace and joy, and he didn't want anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect for that person too, right? So the students most likely created these either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't go around and teach people, hey, chant this thing to me and honor me and respect me, because that would be the ego that would be doing that. That'd be arrogance, and an enlightened being doesn't have that in their mind. So I suspect these chants were created during his life by his students, or maybe after his life, because during his life, the reason why they use chanting is they use it in order to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word for word as a way to commit them to memory, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world at that time frame. It existed in China, but it hadn't made its way to that region of the world where the Buddha was born in Nepal and grew up in Northeast India, what we refer to as Nepal and Northeast India, but it wasn't that at that time. So he used chanting to help his students to learn his teachings. So there isn't anything mystical or magical about the chanting. It's not a prayer. It's not worship or anything like that. Nowadays, we don't need to chant in order to commit the teachings to memory. So I chant in order to ease the mind into meditation, get awareness of the mind, awareness of the breath, and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So you're welcome to chant along if you'd like, and you'll be able to see some of the benefits as I mentioned. In terms of your body positioning, in order to help you, there's actually 4 positions that the Buddha taught to meditate in. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking position. And you would employ these different positions at different times depending on what your goals are in your meditation. Oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, like you guys are all sitting, and those of you at home, you might be sitting on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair or something like this. Sitting is a very common way to learn and practice, but there's other positions as well, because your body is not going to be able to permanently be in this position. One time I got in a motorbike accident and I couldn't cross my legs. I couldn't sit on the floor, right? So your position where you're sitting right now, it's not permanent. And it's not about everybody being in exactly the same position. So if you'd like to shift your body or change your body at any time, feel free to do that. If you'd like to get a chair, help yourself to a chair. But if you are on the floor, I'll just give you a couple of pointers that oftentimes people will sit with the cushions under their rear with their legs lightly crossed. This helps the circulation to flow in the lower body. You're not interested in your legs being real tight. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, which gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and that allows the circulation to flow as well. The hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. It's not possible. We all have different bodies and we're going to find different things to be comfortable. So some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. And the same thing for those of you guys in chairs or on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair. People usually like to just put their feet flat on the floor or cross at the ankles. But some people even sit in chairs like this with their legs crossed. So find whatever's comfortable for you. And the same thing with your hands and the arms if you're sitting in a chair. With the upper body, you would like that to be erect. By having your upper body erect, it keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session to train the mind during your meditation. You're cultivating certain wholesome qualities and you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities. It's like exercising the mind. It's like taking the mind to the gym. So by having the upper body erect, it keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. If you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, not only does it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, fully expanding the lungs. So again, I'm going to start with some chanting, which isn't anything mystical or magical or a prayer or worship. You're welcome to join along if you like. Even if you've never learned these chants before, you can just chant along. And then afterwards, I'll give you a little bit of guidance in the meditation. Then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll all be meditating together. I'm sure you hear occasional bird chirping or dog barking. Sounds like we've got some tools going on. All these things are impermanent. So you can just focus your mind on the breath, but there'll be a period of time where everyone here and everyone online will just be meditating together. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then I'll start the class from that point forward. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Wat Tung Mahakewanhang Apivati Savakato Mahakewata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sambuddho Sakato Rokawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you would like to just establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, Breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโหตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, I'd like to welcome all of you guys, those of you guys here at the temple, those of you guys that joined us since we started meditating, those of you that are joining us online, welcome to Wat Tung, welcome to our class today. For those of you guys that it's your first time here, I'd like to just let you know there's a bathroom in the very last door on the right in the back of the room. You're welcome to use it at any time. Just feel free to help yourself. There's even bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go outside the classroom, there are signs that'll take you around to the main temple bathrooms, so you're welcome to use those as well. We even have water and snacks here that is provided by our students. So if you'd like to help yourself to some water or snacks or anything like that, you can make yourself comfortable throughout our class today. So as I mentioned, today is the Pali Canon and English study group where we're studying the original words of the Buddha. But before we move into that, I'd like to just help you guys to get a little bit of taste of the teachings of the Buddha, to understand what he taught just a little bit, and then we'll move into studying his actual teachings. So this meditation is designed to help you cultivate awareness of mind or mindfulness, and also help you to develop concentration, which are two qualities of mind that you're going to need on your journey to enlightenment. You need to be able to understand and be aware of what's going on in your own mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, you're not aware of what's going on in your mind, that you're maybe just plowing through life and not really thinking through your decisions and using wisdom to decide what will be helpful for you in your life. So this meditation is helping you to be aware of what's going on in your own mind so that you can work towards purifying your mind and training your mind to let go. So in the unenlightened state, what the mind's experiencing is anger and sadness and frustration and irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all these discontent feelings. And the reason why this is occurring is what's going on in your own mind. Oftentimes we blame these feelings on other people in the unenlightened state. You might think your husband or your wife is causing you to be angry, or your children are causing you to be angry, or maybe your boss or your mom or your dad. You might think that they're annoying you or frustrating you, but in reality, it's your own mind that's causing this. This is what the teachings of the Buddha bring to your awareness, is helping you to be able to see with wisdom what's truly causing these discontent feelings, so that then you can actually eliminate them. And if you didn't understand what was causing these feelings, you wouldn't be able to eliminate them. You're just going to be stuck in this constant cycle of experiencing sadness, anger, and frustration over and over and over again. But you can escape out of this through learning and developing, examining his teachings, investigating them, reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then by practicing them, you can uproot the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings. And then you can experience the peace and the joy more and more. It's almost like there's the sun and then there's the clouds. And the rays of the sun are trying to break through, but you can't see the rays of the sun because you've got these clouds in the way. And when the clouds are peeled back, the rays of the sun can shine through. So the enlightened mind is the same way. You can almost think of it as your mind is already enlightened, but you have this pollution that's blocking and hindering you from being able to experience the qualities of the enlightened mind. But when you learn what these pollutions are and you uproot them out of the mind, then the rays of the sun can come shining through. The rays of this enlightened mind, the purity and the brightness of the enlightened mind can shine through. So the teachings of the Buddha, as I mentioned, they're not a bunch of beliefs of things that you believe, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because either you convinced yourself to believe it or somebody else convinced you to believe it. You don't know what's true or false, so your mind can waver and shake. His teachings aren't a bunch of rules and commandments of things that everybody's required to follow. Instead, he's teaching you about your mind, and he's teaching you about the world around you. I don't even think of the teachings of the Buddha as a religion, because with religion, you get rites and rituals, ceremonies and worship. You get rules and commandments. There's typically one person at the top dictating to other people what they should and shouldn't do. The teachings of the Buddha are about you cultivating wisdom and you making wiser decisions. It's always about your life and you making the decision which is best for you. Because when you have wisdom, you'll make wise decisions that produces wholesome results in your life. But when you lack wisdom, you're going to make unwise decisions and it's going to produce unwholesome results. We refer to this as kama. You might have heard this word karma before. This is the Sanskrit word. Well, in the original teachings of the Buddha, which are in the Pali language, they use the word kama. So people who use or study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the word kama. This word kama, it's referring to a natural law of cause and effect or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. It's literally a sequence of events that whenever you make a certain decision, either wisely or unwisely, it's going to produce certain results, either wholesome kama or wholesome results, or unwholesome kama or unwholesome results. But when you lack wisdom, you're going to naturally make unwise decisions that lead to unwholesome results. And that's where typically the unenlightened mind will blame other people for the things that we experience. Or you might think that it's good luck or bad luck, or you might think it's your destiny or your fate that this particular thing is happening in your life. But more and more, you can see through the teachings of the Buddha, independently verifying that what you experience in life is a result of the decisions that you're making. So the teachings of the Buddha are putting you at the center of the teachings and saying it's up to you to cultivate this wisdom. It's your journey to enlightenment. Where a teacher comes in is we're like a tour guide, helping you to understand what it is you need to learn and grow and develop, but you're the one who's doing all the work. We are doing the work to share the teachings and share the resources with you, but it's up to each individual student to decide that you're done with anger, you're done with the misery and the sorrow and the grief and the despair and the arguments and the hostility and all the stress and anxiety. If you're done with all that stuff and you're tired of experiencing all of that stuff, the teachings of the Buddha are there for you to be able to help you break through that and be able to understand what's causing it and then to be able to eliminate it. What's actually causing these feelings to occur is something called craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way. When the unenlightened mind gets what it wants, it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But when it doesn't get what it wants, it experiences painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience. Essentially, the unenlightened mind wants things to be a certain way in the world. It has a certain craving, a certain desire, and it forms its feelings based on these things. So, for example, the mind is experiencing conditioned pleasant feelings in the unenlightened state. If you really want it to be sunny outside, and it's sunny outside, you'll be so happy. When it's sunny outside, you'll be so excited. Yay, we can go hiking today. We can go outside and play. But when you get happy and excited about that, and you form this conditioned feeling, that condition of the sun isn't permanent. Everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. It's temporary. So if you form your happiness based on the sun, then when that sun goes away and it's raining, you'll be sad and you'll be frustrated, or you'll be agitated or annoyed. Or another example, if you base your inner feelings on your bank account, and when your bank account balance is this, maybe $5,000, I don't know, whatever it is for you, you might have a certain amount where it's like, hey, if my bank account balance is that, I'll be happy. But your bank account balance can't be that permanently. It's going to go up and down and up and down. So when you're base your inner feelings of happiness on the level of your bank account, this is conditional happiness. You can only be happy when that condition is met. And then when that condition is no longer met, you will be sad or you will be frustrated. And the same thing's happening not just with the weather or money. It's happening with mom and dad and brothers and sisters and bosses and all kinds of things. You know, if you're in a relationship, perhaps, if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might be so happy and so excited. But then when you break up, you're sad and you're frustrated. This is because the mind's craving permanence. It's not because of love. When people die in your life, you're not grieving and sad because of you love them. You're actually grieving and sad because your mind's holding on, wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. You're holding on to perhaps the weather, your bank account, wanting mom and dad to be a certain way, wanting brothers and sisters and bosses to be a certain way. Maybe when you go to a wedding, you might grieve or you might be sad because this person is going off into the world with somebody else, but your mind is holding on to them, wanting them to be permanent. Or say you get a brand new car and you get so excited with this brand new car. You drive it off the parking lot, you park it at a store, you go inside, you come out and see a scratch on the car. If you get frustrated in that situation, it's not the scratch that's causing that frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They're not causing you to be frustrated. What's causing the frustration is the mind's craving for this car to look permanently beautiful. And it's just not possible for this car to be permanently beautiful because it's impermanent, just like everything else. This car, the paint's going to fade, the upholstery is going to get torn or ripped or something like this. The tires are going to need to be changed. But as long as your mind is craving permanence, you live in an impermanent world. So you're going to be frustrated and irritated or annoyed. It'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched your car, right? It'd be wonderful. But that's not the world that we live in. We live in an impermanent world. So as long as your mind has these cravings, desires, attachments, and you have these expectations and these wants, the amount of time that you can be happy becomes less and less and less and less because there's all these conditions that have to be met. If it's sunny, if my bank account is this, if mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if I get to go to Thailand, right? If I do these things, if I get all these things, then I will be happy. But if I don't get those things, I'm going to be angry or sad. So if I really get excited that I'm going to go to Thailand, and I get so excited I'm going to go to Thailand, and then for 2 or 3 months, maybe you're really excited to go to Thailand. When you show up to the airport and your flight is delayed or it's canceled, you'll be frustrated. You'll be agitated because you've based your inner feelings on going to Thailand. And I want to go to Thailand at a certain time, but that's not permanent. It's not possible for every plane in the world to take off at the scheduled time. These planes are impermanent. They're going to have a maintenance issue, a crew issue. There's going to be some weather issue. There's going to be some issue that's keeping this plane from going off at the scheduled time. But if your mind craves and desires for this plane to take off at a certain time, when it doesn't do that, you'll be frustrated. So as long as your mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition, you can only be happy in that situation. And that happiness that's going to arise, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away and ultimately leave you feeling dissatisfied. Because even when you get what you want, that happiness is only temporary. It's going to fade away. This is why you might chase money for a period of time, thinking that's what you want, and you chase that, and maybe you get it, and you're happy, but then that fades away. Or you might think you want a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might chase that for a while, and then when you get it, you're happy, but then you get sad and frustrated. Then you might want a new house or a new car or new jewelry or new clothes or something like this. The mind just keeps chasing. This craving, desire, attachment, it's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind just keeps wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting. So the mind in the unenlightened state is forming its inner feelings based on some condition. And this meditation that we just did is training your mind to let go, to let go, to let go. Because in a situation where you're angry and frustrated, your mind's holding on to something. It can't let go. So if during the meditation you had to let go 20, 30, 50 times, maybe you were bombarded with thoughts, you're not bad at meditation. It's just that your mind is untrained, right? Maybe you haven't been meditating much, so your mind's untrained. So you might have got a bombardment of thoughts, or you might have indulged in a thought and held on to that thought for a period of time, for 2 or 3 minutes. And then you were like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath, right? So if 20, 30, 50 times you had to let go and let go and let go and let go, this is really good training for your mind, so that in daily life, you can train your mind to let go. When you feel that frustration arising, when you feel that anger, that irritation, that guilt and shame, that negative self-talk in your mind, if you have that inner dialogue that's negative and degrading and diminishing, you can train your mind to let that go. But it's not going to happen with just one session of meditation. It's going to need to have gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It's just like taking your mind to the gym. If you take this body to the gym, you need to exercise it. So then when your friend asks you, hey, can you help me move my sofa? You have the strength to be able to do that, right? So if you take your mind to the meditation gym each day, then you'll have the ability to let go. It's just like you clean your body every day. You need to clean this mind every day. If you've been taught to clean the body every day, wonderful, great. You have more hygiene. But you also need to learn to clean the mind every day, because you're not addressing the full being who you are. Maybe you're cleaning the body, but you're not cleaning the mind. And this is why you experience the anger, the sadness, the frustration, and all these other discontent feelings, because you're not addressing this full being of who you are. And you don't have to walk around with the anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings. There's an escape for you. You can train your mind to eliminate it. So we use breathing mindfulness meditation to train the mind to let go. And we also use generosity, where you're giving and you're sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation, such as your time, your effort, your energy, your resources, without any expectation of anything in return. If you're practicing giving and sharing, but you want something back from somebody, it's not pure generosity. You need to be able to practice pure generosity, where you don't want anything from anybody. You just offer this particular thing to somebody. So there's other teachings that the Buddha shared. There's a core central path called the Eightfold Path, that if you take any of the foundational programs or courses and retreats that I share, I teach that Eightfold Path. But in this program, the Pali Canon and English Study Group, we study volumes 2 through 13 of the book series that I share. In the group learning program and all the other foundational programs, we study volume 1. And that's the place where I suggest that somebody start who's truly interested in eliminating their discontent feelings, to start with volume 1. You can download this from our website for free. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here at the temple by just essentially reimbursing us for our printing cost. cost, or you can order it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon in your particular country. So if you start with that first book and you gradually read chapter by chapter, I have a program that I teach each Sunday and each Wednesday where I walk you through the book over a 7-month period. And I teach it here at the temple at 9 a.m. and I teach it online at home at 9 p.m. And I'm also teaching here at 9 a.m. I'm live streaming that as well. So if you're like in North America, Central America, or South America, that might be like Saturday evening for you and Sunday morning, where here it's Sunday morning and Sunday evening. So there's 2 classes per day. So no matter what time zone you're in, you can learn here and you can learn online through our live stream, through Zoom. We live stream through YouTube, Facebook, and we're on Zoom as well. And when you can't make the live class, it's recorded so you can watch it at your own leisure. So by reading the book, by attending the classes, you can also get personal guidance where you can schedule appointments with me either here in Chiang Mai or even online. We can meet in Zoom when you're at home in your home country, but slowly but surely you can gradually build up your life practice. Essentially what the Buddha gave you is this self-help program. It's a well-vetted 2,500-year program that's been around for all those years, that is well tested and tried, that it's going to help you to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. Right? But what hurts you is inside your own mind, and that's what you'll need to come to understand. And you can do this through independently verifying the teachings of the Buddha. And it starts with the core central teachings. And I suggest that you take one of our foundational programs to be able to develop those. But this program is about going through volumes 2 through 13. And this is a 1.5-year program, and we do it each Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And then I live stream it. And then I do it Saturday evening from home, and I live stream that as well. And now we're in volume 13. We're actually coming to the end of this program. We're going to restart from the beginning. The group learning program in the Pali Canon English study group, you can start at any time. You don't have to start at the beginning. But here, just to let you know, we're kind of coming in towards the end of this particular program. We're going to be restarting it from the beginning. What we do in this program is we study these books, and we're in volume 13, chapter 31. And these chapters are actually quite short. This one is actually like 1.5 pages, perhaps, right? You've got the words of the Buddha, which are from him during his lifetime, translated into English. Then you've got a reference back to the original source teachings. This takes you back to the Pali Canon in case you would like to see that this is actually from his original teachings. You might be interested to see what he was talking about before or after this. Then you've got words from me to be able to help you to reflect on this and integrate it into your life, to be able to glean even more information from the words of the Buddha. So this particular book is titled Generosity. While it's the very last book in the book series, it's actually one of the most important things that you could ever practice in your life. Because when your mind has craving, desire, attachment, the cause of discontentedness, you're going to cling to things. You're going to hold on to things. You're going to become selfish. My money, my phone, my computer, my clothes, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my car, my job. Everything's mine, 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 mine. But in order to train your mind to let go and eliminate your discontent feelings and eliminate craving, desire, attachment, you're going to need to train your mind to live open-handedly and to live joyful by giving and sharing with others. So this last book, while it is the last book titled Generosity, it's really one of the most important practices along with meditation to be able to train your mind to let go and to live open-handedly and eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So we've been studying a lot of different teachings in this program over the last 1.5 years. And now jumping in here towards the end, you're going to be seeing some things that you may or may not understand 100%, and that's okay. Where you have questions, you can let me know. What we do in this program is I invite the students here at the temple and those of you guys in Zoom that someone can volunteer to read this particular chapter. And as you read this particular chapter, we'll all be listening. And then afterwards, I will share some teachings on that chapter, maybe 5 minutes or so. And then we'll open up to any and all questions that you guys have related to the chapter. If you would like to volunteer to read this here at the temple, or if you have any questions at any point during the class, we have microphones here in the white bowl. If you could use the microphones, that would be wonderful. There's a button on the front. There's a little gray button. You just press that. You'll see the lights come on. You just wait a second or so, and then you hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you talk without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then for those of you guys online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like by opening up your microphone. And those of you in Zoom, you can also volunteer to read too, because we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you through the live stream as well. So is there anybody who would like to read this first chapter to get us started? Sure. Yeah, if you could get the microphone back there. And sure, I'll help you. These microphones, when you get them, you can keep them with you, bring them back to your seat. We have plenty of them, because that way if you have questions or something like that, you can use it. There might be someone around you that would like to have a question, and you can share the microphone with the people around you. So there should just be a button. It'll just take a second for the mic to engage. There it is. I heard your breath. Oh, it went off. There it is. Yeah, see if it works. It's not on yet. Let me see it. The batteries might be low. Some of them, the batteries are out. Yeah, this one, the batteries are dead. The batteries are impermanent.
Testing.
There you go. You got it now.
Eight kinds of rebirth on account of giving. Monks, there are these 8 kinds of rebirth on account of giving. What 8? 1. Here, someone gives a gift to an ascetic or a Brahmin, food and drink, clothing and vehicles, garlands, scents and ointments, bedding, dwellings, and lighting. Whatever he gives, he expects something in return. He sees affluent Katyas, affluent Brahmins or affluent householders, enjoying themselves, furnished and endowed with the 5 objects of sensual pleasure. It occurs to him, oh, with the breakup of the body after death, may I be reborn in companionship with affluent Katyas, affluent Brahmins, or affluent householders. He sets his mind on this, fixes his mind on this, and develops his state of mind. That objective of his, determined on what is inferior, not developed higher, leads to rebirth there. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with affluent Katyas, affluent Brahmins,
Wasn't supposed to do that.
or affluent householders. And that is for one who is virtuous, practices moral conduct. I say, not for the one who is immoral. The heart's objective of one who is virtuous succeeds because of his purity. 2. Someone else gives a gift to an ascetic or a Brahmin, food and drink and lightning. Whatever he gives, he expects something in return. He has heard the heavenly beings, ruled by the 4 great kings, are long-lived, beautiful, and abound in happiness. It occurs to him, oh, with the breakup of the body after death, may I be reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings, ruled by the 4 great kings. He sets his mind on this, fixes his mind on this, and develops this state of mind. That objective of his, determined on what is inferior, not developed higher, leads to his rebirth there. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings, ruled by the 4 great kings, and that is for one who is virtuous, practices moral conduct. I say, not for the one who is immoral. The heart's objective of one who is virtuous succeeds because of his purity. 3. Someone else gives a gift to an ascetic or a Brahmin, food and drink and lightning. Whatever he gives, he expects something in return. He has heard. 4. The Timsa heavenly beings. 5. The Yama heavenly beings. The Tasita heavenly beings. 6. The heavenly beings who are excited in creation. 7. The heavenly beings who control what is created by others are long-lived, beautiful, and abound in happiness. It occurs to him, oh, with the breakup of the body, after death, may I be reborn in companionship.
Lost our batteries again. Impermanence is everywhere. It was doing so well. We got some more. This is impermanence. Mm-hmm.
With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings who control what is created by others. And that is for one who is virtuous, practices moral conduct. I say, not for one who is immoral. The heart's objective of one who is virtuous succeeds because of his purity. 8. Someone else gives a gift to the ascetic or the Brahmin, food and drink and lighting. Whatever he gives, he expects something in return. He has heard, the heavenly beings of Brahmas, God's company, are long-lived, beautiful, and abound in happiness. It occurs to him, oh, with the breakup of the body after death, may I be reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of Brahmas, God's company. He sets his mind on this, fixes his mind on this, and develops this state of mind. That objective of his, determined on what is inferior, not developed higher, leads to rebirth there. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of the Brahma's company. And that is for one who is virtuous. I say, not for one who is immoral, for one without craving, not for one with craving. The heart's objective of one who is virtuous succeeds because of his purity. These monks are the 8 kinds of rebirth on account of giving.
Okay, thank you very much. So, students at this point have already studied a lot of the teachings of the Buddha, including the cycle of rebirth. Volume 11 in the book series is about the cycle of rebirth. And it's volume 11 for a reason, because the cycle of rebirth is something that you don't need to learn right up front. But there is a way to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. You may not have the wisdom of how to do that right now, but every teaching of the Buddha you can independently verify for yourself. And you need the wisdom of how to actually do that. So students who are usually studying to this degree, they've already been studying with me for a good 1.5, 2 years, even 3 years, some of them. So if you're just starting on the path to enlightenment, I suggest you take the cycle of rebirth and set it to the side. Instead, focus on the core central teachings of the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the meditation training, and these kinds of things, because that's what's going to uproot the pollution out of your mind, and you'll be able to see the clarity and the crispness and the concentration that the mind experiences as a result of training your mind in this way. But the Buddha did teach the cycle of rebirth for specific reasons, because as you're eliminating that pollution out of your mind, there's the potential that you might end up experiencing communication with beings from these other realms. He taught 5 realms: the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirits or ghost realm, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. All of these realms are impermanent, that beings are moving in and out of these realms all the time. And these realms, like I mentioned, are independently verifiable, and they're not in some far distant land. These beings are in the same time and space as us. So these beings can communicate with human beings. And as your mind becomes more pure and you're eliminating pollution out of your mind, there's the potential that you'll experience communication from hell beings or afflicted spirit beings or even heavenly beings. So if you didn't understand that these beings exist, when you were experiencing communication from them, your mind could be potentially shaken up. So the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth for specific reasons, and this is one of the reasons why, because you can experience communication from these beings. Some people can even experience seeing these beings. You might even see hell beings, afflicted spirits, which are ghosts, and even heavenly beings as well. And these beings, like I mentioned, they can communicate with you. You can potentially see them, or you might even start having memories of your past lives. This is the third reason why the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth, because if you're clearing out the pollution out of your mind, you might actually start recalling certain memories from your past lives. And if you have these continuous memories of, say, being murdered over and over and over again, this could really shake you up if you didn't realize that this was from the past. So what's happened in the past is in the past. It's no longer affecting you now. What's in the future is in the future. It's long in in the future, right? So there's no need to worry about the past or worry about the future. So what may or may not happen in the future in terms of rebirth, you can just set it to the side for now when you first get started. But ultimately, you do get to a point where you independently verify the cycle of rebirth, and you can see with 100% certainty that this is true. But it's not something you need to do at the very beginning. So here in volume 13, the Buddha is teaching about generosity and how generosity leads to rebirth in these various realms. But that's not the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha. The ultimate goal is to learn and grow and develop and train your mind and get to enlightenment in this life so you can escape the cycle of rebirth. The Buddha didn't teach that the goal is to get to heaven, because those beings are actually still in the cycle of rebirth. They're still experiencing the cycle of rebirth. They're experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings, but it's not a permanent existence. Sometimes people are taught that heaven is a permanent existence, but it's not. If you look around you, everything is impermanent. There's nothing in the material world that is permanent. So this is a universal truth. It's a natural law. So you might have been taught and you might believe that the goal is to do a bunch of good things in this life, and you're going to be judged at the end of your life of whether you were good or a bad person, and now you're either going to a good place or a bad place for the rest of eternity. But this isn't actually true. What's happening is beings are moving in and out of these 5 realms, experiencing the ability to cultivate their mind and potentially get to enlightenment. In the human realm, you can get to enlightenment, and in the heavenly realm, you can get to enlightenment as well. From the hell realm, the animal realm, and the afflicted spirit realm, those beings need to ultimately be reborn into the human realm or heavenly realm to have an opportunity to get to enlightenment. So being in the human realm like this, like you are, this is the ideal existence, because you experience painful feelings, pleasant feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So you tend to have built-in motivation because you don't like the anger, you don't like the sadness, you don't like the frustration, and you'd like to get away from it. So that's kind of like the built-in motivation to be able to get to enlightenment, where these heavenly beings just experience pleasant feelings, so they tend to be complacent. They tend to not learn and grow and develop, and they're oftentimes reborn into other realms. So here the Buddha is explaining how generosity does lead to rebirth in these various realms, and he's talking about this first one. He's talking about being reborn back into the human world. But notice what he's saying here, where he says, whatever he gives, he expects something in return. That means the person still has craving. They still have expectation. That's why they're being reborn, because in order to get to enlightenment and escape this continuous cycle, you need to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And you'll see that as you're doing that through the teachings of the Buddha, your mind's becoming more peaceful and joyful, because you know the situations where you were once angry and sad and frustrated and having these other discontent feelings. And when those same situations are occurring and you're no longer experiencing those feelings, you'll know that it's coming from these teachings and the training that you're doing with your mind. But as long as you're practicing generosity with an expectation of something in return, it's not yet pure generosity, and it's going to lead to continuous frustration. So for example, say you are thinking you're practicing generosity where you're going into a store and you're holding the door for the people behind you and you're expecting for them to say thank you. Well, if you're standing there holding the door expecting them to say thank you, when they walk past and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated, you'll be annoyed, you'll be agitated, because you have an expectation. You're not practicing pure generosity yet. And the mind was expecting and craving and wanting something. So you would like to get to a point where you're practicing generosity without any expectation of anything in return. And this is what will protect your mind. As long as you have any kind of craving or longing or yearning, you're going to sometimes get that and you'll be happy. But in some cases, you won't get what you want and you'll be frustrated and you'll be agitated. So even when you're practicing generosity, you need to eliminate the expectation of wanting something. Even as something as simple as holding the door for the people behind you, if you're there with an expectation that they'll say thank you and you don't get it, you'll be frustrated and agitated or annoyed. Your mind hasn't fully let go yet. So when you practice generosity of giving and sharing with your relatives, your friends, your boss, your coworkers, even people you don't know, have no expectation of whatsoever of getting anything back, even a simple thank you. The reason why the Buddha teaches to practice generosity is because it enhances your mind. It helps to improve the quality of your mind because you can give and share without any expectation of anything in return. That's the only thing that you're accomplishing with generosity, is you're getting to the point where you're training your mind to let go. There are benefits that are beyond just enhancing your mind that you experience as a result of giving and sharing. But those benefits that the Buddha teaches, that people learned earlier in this book, those benefits aren't something you should expect or that you should want, but just instead know that those things are occurring. So like, for example, when you practice generosity, you're going to get a good reputation in your community. When you're giving and sharing, you're going to have lots of friends, for example, because people enjoy it when you're giving and sharing. They like being around you because you share your time, your effort, your energy, your resources. You share food, you share your clothing, your jewelry. Maybe you share money with other people. Maybe you buy your friends lunch or something like this. People will appreciate that. You're going to have lots of friends through practicing generosity, but you shouldn't practice generosity because you want friends, because that would be a craving, desire, attachment. But the Buddha is teaching you this cause and effect, this action and result. With every part of his teachings, he's helping you to see the natural law of karma. But then he's helping you to see, why is it important for you to practice something like generosity? It's to train your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So here, we could go through each one of these, but I'm not going to do that because we just read it. But essentially what he's doing is saying, okay, how generosity leads to rebirth in each one of these particular areas. One thing that I will point out, though, because depending on what you guys have learned in other places, some people think that the Buddha never taught about God. Some people think that the Buddha rejected God. This isn't actually true. The Buddha did teach about God. He just didn't put God as the central focus of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine that. So if you've been taught about God, there's probably certain things that you've been taught that are accurate, and there might be certain things that you were taught that were inaccurate. Like if you were taught to fear God, you don't need to fear God. God isn't here to cause you any harm. God's not causing you any harm. Anything that you're experiencing, sometimes people are taught they're being punished or rewarded by God. This isn't actually true. Anything that you experience is a result of your decisions. It's not God that's making these decisions. And like I mentioned, Buddha didn't put God at the central role of his teachings because God's not the one who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine that. You can actually get to enlightenment with a relationship with God if you'd like, or you can get to enlightenment without a relationship with God. God is another being in the cycle of rebirth, and he's an all-knowing, all-powerful being. But just like you may have a relationship with your neighbor in your community, and you may not have a relationship with your neighbor, that's the same thing as God. If you have a relationship with your neighbor, you'll surely benefit from this because you'll have somebody that'll watch over your house maybe when you go on vacation or something like this, and you'll have somebody that you can give food to and you can share with and things like this. But if you choose not to have a relationship with your neighbor, you can still sustain your life, right? You still have a peaceful life. So the same thing is true with this being of God, that you can choose to have a relationship with this being or not. But you don't need to worship God. You don't need to pray to God. God's not a genie in a bottle that's going to instantly produce something in your life. Anything that you experience in life is a result of your decisions. So instead of putting God at the center of the teachings of the Buddha put you at the center of his teachings. It's you that needs to cultivate wisdom. It's you that needs to train your mind. So the Buddha did teach about God, but oftentimes people say that the Buddha rejected God, or the Buddha said that God didn't exist. But these are people that haven't studied the original teachings of the Buddha. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they referred to God as Brahma. That's why I put the word God in there in this book, because all throughout the teachings of the Buddha, you can see he refers to this great Brahma, and he refers to him as the all-knowing and all-powerful being in the world. This is God, right? So we refer to him as Brahma, but we would probably say in English, we would refer to him as God. Okay, so any questions on this chapter that you guys have here at the temple, you can just let me know. You can use a microphone. If you're online and you'd like to ask questions, either in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put that into the comments section, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically, open up your mic, and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do here is move on to the next chapter. We're in chapter 32 now. This goes into a section called the fruits and benefits of giving. Okay, so this is chapter 32. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Oh, Rachel, sure. I think it's even on already.
Hello. Even more fruitful than giving. If, householder, one gives alms, rough or excellent, and one gives disrespectfully, gives inconsiderately, does not give with one's own hand, gives what would be discarded, gives without a view of future consequences, then wherever the result of that gift is produced for one, one's mind is not inclined towards the enjoyment of superb food, nor toward the enjoyment of superb clothing, nor toward the enjoyment of superb vehicles, nor toward the enjoyment of whatever is superb among the 5 objects of sensual pleasure. Also, one's children and wives and one's slaves, servants, and workers do not want to listen to one, do not lend an ear, and do not apply their minds to understand. For what reason? Just this is the result of actions that are done disrespectfully. If, householder, one gives alms, whether rough or excellent, and one gives respectfully, gives considerately, gives with one's own hand, gives what would not be discarded, gives with a view of future consequences, then wherever the result of that gift is produced for one, one's mind inclines towards the enjoyment of superb food, toward the enjoyment of superb clothing, toward the enjoyment of superb vehicles, toward the enjoyment of whatever is superb among the 5 objects of sensual pleasure. Also, one's children and wives and one's slaves, servants, and workers want to listen to one, lend an ear, and apply their minds to understand. For what reason?
Can I pause you there for a second? I would like to just pause for a second. Actually, there's this last part. Go ahead and read this last part.
And for what reason? Just this is the result of actions that are done respectfully.
Okay, so what I would like to share before we go on, because the Buddha is going to teach you some more things here, is that he's giving you these 2 images. He's giving you this image of one person who's giving disrespectfully, would give things that he would rather discard. He hasn't thought through his offering that he's giving to the ordained practitioners. And he's saying, if you do this and you function this way, that you yourself are going to find that it's going to be challenging for you, that your children, your wife, he's talking to men, of course. So he also teaches women as well, but here he's talking to men. So he's saying wives, slaves, because these are like, we can think of these as employees, right? Because we don't have slaves nowadays, but during that time they did have slaves. So that's why I was teaching them about that. Servants, workers, things like this. He's saying they're not going to want to listen to you because they can see your habits. They can see that you're disrespectful. They can see that you're not functioning with wisdom and making wise decisions. So because the people around you are seeing you function with a lack of respect and a lack of wise decision making, the people around you are going to function the same way. So what he's showing you is that people watch you, people observe you, your children, your life partner, your coworkers, people like this, your neighbors, they're going to observe the way that you function in the world. And if you're functioning in unwise ways, they're going to function that same way. This is the Gama coming back to you. But then he gives this other picture of an individual who does make an offering respectfully, that they do think through the consequences that their decisions that they're making, and they're functioning wisely in the world. And because of this, what they're going to experience is that people around them are going to function wisely as well. So your children, your life partner, your coworkers and friends and family, they're watching you and observing the decisions that you're making. And if you continue to make unwise decisions, then the people around you will make those kinds of decisions too. So a person on the path to enlightenment, they're not a follower, right? You're not a devotee. You're an individual. You're an independent practitioner choosing to learn what is wise and unwise, and then you choose to make wise decisions. If you just conform to what the rest of the world is doing, you're going to be stuck in the same misery and despair as everybody else. So if you are out there doing all the same unwise decisions as everyone else, you're going to experience the same unwholesome results. So to get to enlightenment, you need to rise above the calamity of the world, the difficulties that are, the struggles that people are experiencing in the world. Not that you think of yourself as being above others, but you choose to not steal, to not kill, to not have sexual misconduct, to not lie, to not take intoxicants and things like this. And you see the wisdom in this, that if you do these things, it's going to cause harm to others, and therefore this harm is going to come back to you. So you would like to get to the point where you're not a follower, you're not conforming to what other people are doing around you, but you know what is wise and unwise, and then you choose to do the wise things, even when other people around you may be doing unwise things. And now by you doing wise things, it will promote an environment where your friends and family and coworkers and other people around you will see that you're practicing wisely. And now they will tend to watch you and say, wow, look at her life, or look at his life. It's so peaceful. It's so joyful. I think I might do some of those same things as well. So don't follow other people in the world, but instead learn what is wise and unwise. And that's what the Buddha is helping you to see. And he's sharing with you that it's wise to think through your decisions, that when you're practicing generosity, that you give respectfully, not the things that you would otherwise throw away, but that you give things that are meaningful and helpful for people's life. So that's what he's helping you to be able to see here. So thank you, Rachel. If you'd like to keep going, that'd be great.
In the past householder, there was a Brahmin named Valama. He gave such a great alms offering as this: 84,000 golden bowls filled with silver, 84,000 silver bowls filled with gold, 84,000 bronze bowls filled with bullion, 84,000 elephants with golden ornaments, golden banners covered with nets of gold thread, 84,000 chariots with upholstery of lion skins, tiger skins, leopard skins, and saffron-dyed blankets with golden ornaments, golden banners covered with nets of gold thread, 84,000 milk cows with jute tethers and bronze pails, 84,000 maidens adorned with jeweled earrings, 84,000 couches spread with rugs, blankets, and covers, with excellent coverings of antelope hide with canopies and red bolsters at both ends, 84,000 coatis of clothes made of fine linen, fine silk, fine wool, and fine cotton. How much more of food and drink, snacks, meals, refreshments, and beverages? It seemed to be flowing like rivers. You might think, householder, he was someone else, the Brahmin Valama, who on that occasion gave that great alms offering. But you should not look at it in such a way. I myself was the Brahmin Valama who on that occasion gave that great alms offering. Now, householder, at that alms offering, there was no one worthy of offerings, no one who purified the offering. Even more fruitful than the gift alms offering than the Brahmin Valama gave would it be to feed one person accomplished in view. Even more fruitful than the great alms offering that the Brahmin Valama gave, and feeding 100 persons accomplished in view, would it be to feed the one once returner. Even more fruitful than the great alms offering that the Brahmin Valama gave, and feeding 100 once returners, would it be to feed one non-returner. Even more fruitful than the great alms offering that the Brahmin Valama gave, and feeding 100 non-returners, would it be to feed one arahant. Even more fruitful than the great alms offering that the Brahmin Valama gave, and feeding 100 arahants, would it be to feed one Pasika Buddha. Even more fruitful than the great alms offering that the Brahmin Valama gave, and feeding 100 Pasika Buddhas, would it be to feed the Tathagata, the Arahant, the perfectly enlightened one? Would it be to feed the community of monks heading by the Buddha? Would it be to build a dwelling dedicated to the community of the four quarters? Would it be for the one with the mind of confidence to go for refuge to the Buddha, the teachings, and the community? Would it be for one with a mind of confidence to undertake the 5 training precepts, to abstain from the destruction of life, to abstain from taking what is not given, to abstain from sexual misconduct, to abstain from false speech, to abstain from liquor, wine, and intoxicants, substances that cause heedlessness, the basis for heedlessness? As great as all this must be, it would be even more fruitful if one would develop a mind of loving kindness, even for the time it takes to pull a cow's udder. As great as all this might be, it would be even more fruitful if one would develop the perception of impermanence, just for the time of a finger snap.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So here what the Buddha is describing is he's describing this really big offering that somebody made in the past, this amazing amount of material possessions, 84,000 of each one of these individual things, right? And then he says, hey, that person that made that offering, it was actually him in a previous life that made this particular offering. But at that time, there wasn't somebody there that could purify the offering. What it means to purify the offering is somebody that was practicing in a pure way that could receive the offering and benefit from that offering. Then he says, okay, the types of people that you should look for to purify the offering are these types of people. And what he's referring to is he's referring to someone who's practicing the teachings closely that has purified the mind. When he's talking about someone who's accomplished in view, what he's talking about there is somebody who understands right view. What right view is to understand the Four Noble Truths, understanding the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is the very first beginning teaching of the Buddha to be able to get on the path to enlightenment. So someone who's accomplished in view or having established right view, they would deeply understand the path to enlightenment, and they would essentially be in the first stage of enlightenment. They haven't gotten to enlightenment yet, but they've at least got accomplishment in view, that they've studied to a certain degree and purified their mind to a certain degree. This is part of the first stage of enlightenment, to get to accomplishment in view. Then from there, he's saying, okay, making an offering to a once returner. A once returner is someone who's in the second stage of enlightenment. These are the names that people gave during his lifetime to the first, second, third, and fourth stage of enlightenment. It's not when it's only when you're in the fourth stage of enlightenment that you're actually enlightened, that the mind no longer experiences any discontent feeling. So there's what's called a stream enterer, which is the first stage of enlightenment. We call it a stream enterer because just like a log enters the stream, it's going to eventually get to the ocean. It's just a matter of time. Once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you're going to get to enlightenment. It's just a matter of time, either in this life or in the next few lives, essentially no more than 7, you will get to enlightenment. A once returner is the second stage of enlightenment, and we call it a once returner because if you die in that stage of enlightenment, you're going to come back to the human realm one more time and actually get to enlightenment. Perhaps you were a once returner in your previous life, and now is your life to be able to get to enlightenment. Then we have what's called a non-returner. This is the third stage of enlightenment, and if you die in that stage of enlightenment, you're still experiencing some discontentedness, but you're going to be reborn into the heavenly realm, and you're going to get to enlightenment from that realm. But then there's this arahant. This is the way to refer to an enlightened being during the lifetime of the Buddha. We would just refer to this person as an enlightened being. They have fully purified their mind. They're no longer experiencing any discontentedness. And if you die in that stage of enlightenment, you're no longer being reborn anywhere in the cycle of rebirth. The Buddha doesn't say what's next for an enlightened being. Once you get to enlightenment and you die, what comes next? He doesn't say what does come next or what doesn't come next. He just leaves it as an undeclared teaching. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is so peaceful and joyful, you're not going to care what's next. It doesn't matter what's next, because if there is something next, it's either as good as what you're already experiencing or better. And if there isn't something next, so what? Who cares? Your mind's already peaceful. Your mind's already joyful. So an arahant is the fourth stage of enlightenment. So the Buddha is saying that it would be wise to make offerings to people that are in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, because you're coming in contact with somebody who has the wisdom to help you be able to get to one of those 4 stages of enlightenment. That's what the real benefit is. It's not anything mystical or magical. It's that, hey, if you're making an offering to someone who's enlightened, then you're going to be able to gain the wisdom of how to get to enlightenment yourself, because you can ask them questions and you can build a relationship with that person and gain insight of what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. But then he goes beyond that and he says, okay, this being that's called a Pakya Buddha, what this is someone who's gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, but they don't choose to share what they did in order to get to enlightenment. They don't teach. They just got to enlightenment by themselves. I've never met an individual like this, but apparently they do exist. So there's some people who can get to enlightenment by themselves, but they don't actually share the teachings of what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. And of course, the Buddha is saying, if you make an offering to this kind of person, it would be helpful for you, because you'd be able to ask them questions. But then he says, this individual who is a Tathagata, or a perfectly enlightened one. This is an actual Buddha. He referred to himself as the Tathagata. What the word Tathagata means is it means the one who's discovered the truth, or the one who shares the truth. That's what the word Tathagata means. So making an offering to an actual Buddha, if you live during the lifetime of a Buddha, this is one of the best people you could ever make an offering to, or the best person, because it's going to produce all this fruit and all this benefit that you come in contact with someone who has deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment, and now you can glean that wisdom and ask questions. So living during the lifetime of a Buddha, you would have to have significant wholesome karma to live during that lifetime, because the wisdom would be very deep in the world of how to actually get to enlightenment. And you coming in contact with that type of person and making offerings to that person would be very beneficial for you, and it's going to produce this fruit and benefit that the Buddha is talking about. But then he goes on and he says, okay, building a building for the community, meaning the ordained practitioners. And he goes through other things here as well. But ultimately what he gets to is he talks about this moral conduct, and he says that's very fruitful, right? Practicing this generosity is wonderful. Practice generosity. But you improving your moral conduct, that's wonderful, because now you're not causing harm to other beings. If you're killing, if you're stealing, if you're having sexual misconduct, if you're lying, if you're taking intoxicants, this is causing harm to other beings and to yourself as well. So even practicing generosity is wonderful. That's great. But improving your moral conduct is even better. But then he even gets to the next part where he says practicing loving kindness meditation. This is like the second most highest quality of wholesome karma that you could generate, is by practicing loving kindness, because what loving kindness does is it eliminates your anger, your frustration, your agitation, your annoyance, where you're not bitter and harsh and hostile to other people. So if you're practicing loving kindness meditation and you're going out into the world and practicing loving kindness through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, this is the most high quality, or the second most high quality karma that you can produce, because now you're not being bitter, harsh, and hostile to other people. And now that won't come back to you. So now that you're not causing harm to others, this won't come back to you. So this is the second highest quality of karma that you could generate. But then the highest quality is he's talking about developing the perception of impermanence, meaning that you deeply understand that everything around you is impermanent. Because as long as your mind believes and has the craving for things to be permanent, you're going to continue to experience discontentedness. And one of the discontent things that you're going to experience is anger and sadness and frustration. And now if you blame it on other people, you might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to people. When your mind doesn't understand craving, desire, attachment, you'll falsely attribute the feelings that you're experiencing that are painful to somebody else outside of you, and you will tend to push those people away, or you will push that situation away, thinking that you've solved the problem. I'm sure you've done this, where you've pushed friends or family members or boyfriends or girlfriends aside, thinking that they're the ones who are causing you to feel painful feelings, and you think you solved your problem, but you didn't. That's why you keep getting angry and sad and frustrated over and over and over again, because they are not the real cause of the problem. Sure, they might have been doing things that are unwise, but pushing them aside doesn't actually solve your problem. You keep getting angry and frustrated again because they're not the ones who are actually causing it. Or the second thing you might do is you might be bitter, harsh, and hostile towards your friends or family or your boyfriend or girlfriend or your children, thinking that you can kind of fear them into doing things your way. Or the third thing that the unenlightened mind will do when it falsely believes that somebody external is causing your painful feelings is you might put your expectations on people, and you might try to control them to do things your way. And this is the unenlightened mind's lack of wisdom, that it thinks that people should do things my way permanently, and now when they don't do things my way, I get painful feelings. You get frustrated or angry or irritated, and now you push people away, bitter, harsh, and hostile, or you put your expectations on people. And this doesn't solve your problem, and that's why you stay stuck in this continuous cycle over and over and over again. But when you get the wisdom to understand that everything around you is impermanent, and your mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way, this is the very best thing that you could ever accomplish, because now you can actually see the real problem and you can implement the solutions to experience a real solution. So that's why the Buddha is sharing here that it would be more fruitful or more beneficial to develop this perception of impermanence, to be able to see that everything around you is impermanent. because otherwise your mind's going to keep craving permanence, and you're going to keep experiencing discontent feelings over and over and over again. So you can accomplish the development of the perception of impermanence by looking around the world around you. You can independently verify that everything's impermanent. Look at your human body. Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If it's permanent, it's been the same your entire life. If it's impermanent, it's constantly changing. Do you get moles? Do you get pimples? Do you get a little extra fat? Does your hair turn gray? Do you get wrinkles? Do you lose your hair? This is all impermanence. This body is constantly changing. Look at your relationships. Ask yourself, are they permanent or are they impermanent? If your relationships are permanent, that means you've had exactly the same people in your life your whole life. If they're impermanent, it means people have been coming and going in and out of your life. What would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? Look at your bank account. Is your bank account permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some go up, up, up. Some go down, 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 right? The weather is impermanent. The sidewalk is impermanent. You can see the walls of the temple, right? It's got holes and marks and different color paint. You can see the floor, the wood planks are different colors. This is all impermanence. But the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't have this wisdom. So it keeps craving permanence. So you need to get to the point where you can walk around the world and you can see all these things are impermanent. And the Buddha is saying this is so fruitful and so beneficial for you. And you can accomplish this also in your meditation. That while you're doing breathing mindfulness meditation, you can see your thoughts are impermanent. They arise, they change, and they fade away. Right? This class is impermanent. We had a certain number of students when we started, and now people are coming and going, right? The temperature in the room has changed, right? It was a little bit warmer when we first started. Now the air conditioning is going, so it's gotten a little bit cooler, right? We have a little bit of quietness, and the next thing you know, we have a car that comes by, some sound, right? These things are all impermanent. So this is deeply helpful and beneficial for your mind. So any questions on this chapter? Let me see if we have any questions online. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. Okay, so let's move on to the next chapter. Let's see what the next one is. This will probably be the last one that we'll study. Let me see. Yeah, would somebody like to read this one? Actually, you know what? 8 streams of merit. Let me see if we have another one here that we can end with. We usually do 10 chapters a week, but here at the temple, we sometimes do less. Okay, let's end with this one. Would somebody like to read this one? It's only about a page. You want to? Yeah, go for it. Rachel's got the mic. Sometimes the mind's shy, right? It doesn't want to read in front of other people. This is part of the mind clinging and holding on. It doesn't want to be perceived in the world a certain way. But one of the ways to train your mind to let that go is put your mind in the situation it doesn't want to be in. So by reading, it actually helps you to let go of this clinging and holding on to wanting to be perceived by others. So your mind will think the way to solve your shyness is to not do something, is to push it away. That's pushing the situation away. It's called aversion. But if you do just the opposite, where you put your mind in the situation it doesn't want to be in, you can train your mind to let go. So for example, if you're afraid of spiders, you might think that you can push spiders away and never see them, but you're going to see a spider. You haven't solved the problem because your mind is still holding on to the craving. So if you look at spiders and pictures of spiders and go to museums of spiders, you can train your mind to not be afraid of these beings. So then you can train your mind to eliminate that fear. So you got it? That one's okay. Lots of impermanence here. These rechargeable batteries don't last as long as the ones that are disposable.
People who generate much merit, wholesome karma. Monks, whenever virtuous monarchs come to a home, the people there generate much merit on 5 grounds. What 5?
Yep, it's on. We can still hear you.
1, when people see virtuous monarchs come to their home and they arouse hearts of confidence, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to heaven. 2, When people rise, pay homage, and offer a seat to virtuous monastics who come to their home, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to birth in high families. 3. When people remove the stain of selfishness towards virtuous monastics who come to their home, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to great influence. 4. According to their means, people share what they have with virtuous monastics who come to their home. On that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to great wealth. 5. When people question virtuous monastics who come to their home, make inquiries about the teachings, and listen to the teachings, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to great wisdom. Monks, whenever virtuous monastics come to a home, the people there generate much merit on these 5 grounds.
Okay, thank you so much. So what merit is where you're giving and sharing. So you're practicing generosity, but you're doing so in order to have the teachings of the Buddha continue so that other people can get access to the teachings. So the Buddha is giving you 5 ways that you can produce merit. And there's other ways as well, but these are just 5 that he's talking about. Here he's saying that when people see virtuous monastics come to their home, they arouse hearts of confidence towards them. On that occasion, the family is practicing the way conducive to heaven. So what he's talking about here is that having confidence in the members of his community that are learning and practicing the teachings, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were various people that were teaching, and they were claiming that it was their teachings that were leading to enlightenment, but the Buddha knew that it was his teachings that were leading to enlightenment. You might think that it was only the Buddha who was teaching, but there was actually lots of people who were teaching and claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. But the Buddha knew that it was his teaching. So his various students were going out in the community and sharing the teachings. And he encouraged people to have this hearts of confidence, that you could have confidence, not belief, but have confidence in his teachings. And then you can learn them, investigate them, and examine them. You can reflect on them to independently verify them, and you can practice them. And by having this hearts of confidence, then you'll actually be in a situation where you're interested in learning. The same things that lead to enlightenment are the same things that if you fall short of enlightenment can potentially lead to rebirth in the heavenly realm. So you'll occasionally see the Buddha talk about this, where he says, okay, this family is practicing the way conducive to heaven. Well, the ultimate goal is to get to enlightenment, but the same things that lead to enlightenment, if you fall short of that for any reason, which oftentimes householders fell short of enlightenment during the lifetime of the Buddha because they were so busy just trying to sustain their life with various tasks like acquiring food, getting water from the well. That would be like an all-day affair, just carrying water. You know, we have these modern conveniences where we have so much time in our life that you have much better opportunity to get to enlightenment as a household practitioner now than perhaps even during the lifetime of the Buddha, because you have so much more time available to you to learn and practice and develop to get to enlightenment, because we have so many modern conveniences. In fact, we have so many modern conveniences that you have so much time that you might fill it with unbeneficial things. Maybe just searching social media for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, perhaps, where you can actually cut that back, maybe 30 minutes or an hour a day, and spend your time doing that. But then you have all this other time to learn the teachings, to train your mind, to meditate, and things like this, right? So the same things that lead to the enlightened mental state lead to rebirth in the heavenly realm. And oftentimes householders were falling short of enlightenment, but there were some householders that got to enlightenment during the lifetime of the Buddha as well. And then here he's talking about paying respect to people who come to their home, because the way that the teachings would be shared during the lifetime of the Buddha is that families would invite ordained practitioners or teachers into their home to teach at the home. And they would oftentimes live right there in the home for a week or 2 or a month or 2, and they would teach the family as the family was requesting teachings. And the ordained practitioner, the teacher, was receiving a place to live, they were receiving food and these kinds of things, but then they were sharing the teachings to help people. And then probably at nighttime, they might have been teaching the villagers that would come together, and they would have, different talks in the village and things like that. And then he talks about this stain of selfishness. This is the whole reason why this is actually in this particular book, is that the Buddha talks about this selfishness, and he refers to it oftentimes as a stain, like a pollution in your mind. Because when you're selfish, your mind has this stain where you're not willing to give and share. It's almost like a wild animal. A wild animal, when it has food, like a lion or something like this, it won't share. or like a dog, it doesn't want to share its food. It'll growl and roar and fight that other animal because it doesn't want to share its food. And sometimes in the unenlightened state, a human being can function very much like an animal. We aren't animals. We are human beings. We are different than animals. We have the ability to cultivate our mind in a way that animals don't have. But in the unenlightened state, a human being can oftentimes function like an animal, kind of hoarding your food or hoarding your money or hoarding your clothes and things like this. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to eliminate your craving, where you're not holding on to things so tightly, and you can get rid of this selfishness. You know, when we were all children, we're kind of taught to share. We're kind of taught to share our toys. But when we get older, we kind of forget about that, and we start acquiring all these material possessions, and we tend to hold on to things really tightly. So perhaps the Buddha's teachings can remind you that it's helpful to give and share, but you need to do that from the middle way, because if you share extensively, you won't have the basic needs that you need to sustain your life. But if you never share, your mind will be quite selfish. So you'd like to come to the middle where you're willing to give and share without any expectation of anything in return, and this will help you to improve the condition of your mind. Then the Buddha's talking about other things here too, but ultimately what he gets to is talking about having questions for the teachers or the monastics, the people who are sharing the teachings with you, that if you're deeply interested in learning and practicing the teachings, this is really helpful for your life, and it helps the teachings come into the world through your own mind and then through the people around you who might ask you questions, and you'll be able to help them someday. Oftentimes people are interested in going out into the world and changing the world. You can't change the world. There's 8 billion people in the world that are doing things based on what's going on in their own mind and their own wisdom. Instead, it's wise to understand the world. So what the teachings of the Buddha are doing is helping you to understand the world and these natural laws. And when you understand them and you train your mind and you purify your mind and you're no longer bitter, harsh, and hostile, this is changing the world. The way to change the world is change your own mind. Going out into the world and trying to change other people, this is fruitless if you're not doing the work to change your own mind. So by changing your own mind, by improving the condition of your own mind, by focusing on your own practice, where you're no longer choosing to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to others, and you're training your own mind, this is transforming the world, because you causing less and less harm in the world will change the world. But each individual person needs to choose to do that on their own. So rather than take on the burden of changing the world, take on the responsibility or the goal or the objective of changing your own mind, improving the condition of your own mind. And having done so, you will have changed the world, because you would have improved the condition of your own mind. So the Buddha is teaching you to do that by listening to the teachings and asking questions. This is the way conducive to wisdom, great wisdom. This is what's going to lead to the improvement in your life, because now you make wiser decisions that produce wholesome results in your life. So do you guys have any questions on this chapter? People who generate much merit or wholesome karma. Okay. Not seeing any questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end here by thanking you all for coming to our temple, for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. And at the same time, I will invite you to future classes. Tomorrow in the group learning program, which starts at 9 a.m. here, I'm going to be sharing what's called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. This is a high-level description of what's causing difficulties in the mind. And we go pretty deep, and we talk about the solutions of what's going to fix the mind as well. This is chapter 8 of the first book, volume 1. The first book is titled Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. I'm going to be talking about craving, anger, and something called ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. These are the 3 high-level pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind, and it's motivating all your unskillful and unwise decisions. So when you understand what these are and how to eradicate them, then you can arise the wholesome roots to then go out into the world and make wholesome and wise decisions, which is going to produce wholesome results in your life. But as long as you don't understand the problem and the solutions, you're not going to be able to get to the solution and actually transform your mind. So I'm going to be teaching you how to transform your mind away from the 3 unwholesome roots towards the 3 wholesome roots. And now, through having done so, you will see more and more improvements in your life. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing meditation with students and just opening up to any and all questions that you have. I don't have any topic that I'm going to be talking about. It's just any and all questions that you guys might have. So I'm going to be teaching tomorrow on Sunday here, and then on Wednesday as well. And then if you guys would like to ask any questions privately or talk with me privately, you're always welcome to reach out, and I'll be pleased to help you personally as well. So enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you choose to do. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll perhaps see you in a future class. Take care. Sawadee khap. Sawadee khap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.